Hello everyone, this is Frank DiMora. Today is July the 18th of 2017. I'd like to welcome you once again to my YouTube channel, and I'd like to invite you to go over to my website, the End Times Research Ministry site. That's where you can get my book, The Last Chronicles of Planet Earth, the documentary on Bible prophecy and current events, absolutely free today. All you have to do is just scroll down when you get to the site and you'll see the link there for the book. Just click on the link, and depending on how fast your computer is, that's how fast this book will come up, and it's updated, so it has the current information on it. Over the years, I've been warning you about Daniel's prophecy that obviously God gave to Daniel about the rebuilding of the Jewish temple. There was the first temple that Antiochus Epiphanes destroyed. Then in 70 AD, under Caesar's rule, and they destroyed the second temple. They actually burned it down, and that was a fulfilled prophecy that Jesus talked about. You could see that in Matthew chapter 24. And Jesus told us there was going to be a third temple that was going to be built again, because Jesus refers back to Daniel's prophecy. And so we are expecting. Now, over these many years, I've been warning you about this Temple Mount. What is going to happen on the Temple Mount that was going to cause the third temple to be built. You can see right here, June 29th, 2017. I gave you a warning in there that I'm going to play that warning for you so that you could see what I said. Then I'm going to present some information to you that shows you exactly what I said has taken place. On the video that I made, if you want to move it forward to the 36, around the 36 minute, almost the 37 minute, you'll see this is where I give you a warning. I'm just going to play this. It's very short, and I'll come back and connect the dots. I would recommend that any Christian who loves the Lord keep your eyes on what's going on in Israel, in East Jerusalem, and on the Temple Mount area, because you're going to see a lot of activity concerning the Jews making headway, allowing their people to go up and have the rights, just like the Muslims do right now. The steps we're seeing taken by the Israeli government are forging the way for the appearance of the Antichrist. If you go over to my YouTube channel and this video, what I said is identical. So here's the breakdown on it. I published this June 29th of 2017. On July 14th, I made another video for my prophecy seminar that you could see that I added these hands in there, and the warning again went out for this seminar that I'm giving on July the 30th. So my warning about the temple still holds. And I wanted you to keep your eyes on this area because it is going to happen. The temple will be built. And just as I warned you before, the Jews would be able to go up and pray on the Temple Mount area. Now I'm going to connect those dots for you. I told you something was going to happen. This news came out, breaking Israel news. This news came out July 17th, 2017. This came out 3 days after I made the video that I'm making for my seminar on July the 30th. The headline, Islamic Waqf Boycott Leads to Prophetic Sightings of Prayer on Temple Mount. Now I know that this should blow you away, because I was blown away by what I read after I gave that warning. Right underneath the title to the article, it says this under the picture: as Israeli police forces look on, Jewish men recite the Kaddish prayer of mourning for the Druze policemen killed on the Temple Mount on July the 14th. The Islamic Waqf has boycotted the compound, leaving Jews unmolested by Muslim chaperones forbidding prayer. I warned you, major things were going to take place, footsteps to allow first prayer and the services, and then obviously the temple itself. A number of Israeli Jews were able to pray freely on the Temple Mount Monday after a bizarre sequence of events which resulted in Muslims boycotting the site. The Jews ascending the Temple Mount were unattended by Muslim guards for the first time, get this now, in decades. Some could not resist a temptation to pray in a poignant display of pity. The first prayers were for non-Jewish policemen who felt protecting the Jewish people during last Friday's terror attack at the site. On Friday morning, 3 Palestinians opened fire near the Temple Mount, killing 2 Druze Israeli policemen and injuring 2 others before they were killed by Israeli forces on the mount itself. In the aftermath of the attack, the Israeli government closed the Temple Mount to Muslim prayer for the first time since 1999. The site was also closed to Jews. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered the Temple Mount reopened on Sunday with increased security measures, which included requiring Muslim visitors to pass through metal detectors. While Jews who visit the site have always been subject to strict security checks, including metal detectors, Muslims have never, until now, had to undergo the same scrutiny. The Waqf, Jordanian Islamic Authority, immediately called on Muslims to boycott the site, calling the medical detectors Israeli aggression. Inter-Islamic scuffles broke out as some Palestinians attempted to prevent others from entering the Temple Mount compound. Dozens of Muslims prayed at the entrances to the compound, kneeling in prayer towards the IDF guards in a scene that seemed to be the sudden materialization of prophecy. And they quote from Isaiah chapter 60 verse 14. And the sons of them that afflicted thee shall come bending unto thee, and all they that despise thee shall bow down at the soles of thy feet. And they shall call thee the city of Hashem, the Zion of the Holy One, Yisrael. Now they have a picture here. Here's the Israeli IDF, and here they are bowing down just like we saw in this prophecy. Trust me, people, this is one giant step for the Israeli government, which down the road is going to open up the facility, the Temple Mount area, to the Jews completely for prayer, for services, and then the rebuilding of that third temple. Let's go down and see what it says. On Monday, Jews were finally permitted to visit the site. Due to the Waqf strike, they were able to walk on the Temple Mount without any antagonistic Muslim guard in attendance to ensure they would not pray. The site was also largely free of Muslim worshippers observing the Waqf's boycott. Now I'm going to skip down to the last paragraph. This opportunity for Jews to pray on the Temple Mount did not come as a result of Jewish demand, but as a result of Muslim action. Rabbi Shalom Meshes, former chief rabbi of Haifa, taught that temple will be built when the Arabs beg Jews to build it. As unlikely as this may seem today, today's Jewish prayer is evidence that when it comes to matters concerning the temple, anything is possible and the improbable is commonplace. If you have your eyes focused on the word of the Lord, and you know what the Lord has prophesied for the future, and He's laid it out in detail, you would be able to predict and tell your friends and your family what to expect in Israel, what to expect in East Jerusalem, what to expect on the Temple Mount area. And when I told you major developments were going to take place, well, it's not hard to predict because the Lord already told us that this temple would be built. So in order for the Jews to continue to go up to an actual temple, there has to transpire events before the actual temple is built, and we are seeing those events taking place right now. Let me tell you what's going to happen before it happens. You see these steps leading up to the Temple Mount? One of these days, people are going to be walking up these steps, and probably on the other side of this dome, whether if the dome is taken out by an earthquake or whatever happens, or as John the Apostle points out in the book of Revelation, where the Lord gives us instructions, but exclude the outer court. Do not measure it, because it has been given to the Gentiles, because there is a possibility that the Jewish temple may be built on the side of the Dome of the Rock. But in either case, people will be walking up these steps, and they will see this Jewish temple that is built. It will be a fulfillment of what Jesus prophesied about and a precursor to the entrance of the Antichrist. Because we know when it's built, that's when the Antichrist will go in and proclaim himself as God. That's why I've been telling you for years, you will see the Jews pray on the Temple Mount. And it's happening now, and it will continue to happen until that temple stands on the mount. This is Frank DiMora with the End Times Research Ministry. Give your life over to Jesus now. It's a great time while the church is still here. Now, over the course of my ministry over these many years, I've been warning the people to watch what's going on the Temple Mount. And I said in my many warnings, if you see any change of the status quo by Israel on the Temple Mount, it's going to cause a war or conflict or extreme violence. And in many of my warnings, I continually ask people, please watch, because Israel is the focal point for the end time prophecies, and East Jerusalem, where the Temple Mount is, as I said many times before, that's a key place to be watching fulfillment of Bible prophecy. Now, one of my warnings that I gave came in another warning that I gave from June the 29th of 2017. You'll see it, Israel government making plans to rebuild Jewish temple. Now, in that warning, I bring you back to another warning, as you can see right here, in October the 30th of 2014. That they were talking about war, status quo changes. What I'm going to do is just play a short clip of my past warnings, and you'll understand why.
Abbas closing off the Temple Mount tantamount to declaration of war. This is Ahmad Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Organization. Palestinian Authority President Ahmad Abbas called the closure of the Temple Mount to all visitors on Thursday a declaration of war, as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called for calm and civility in Jerusalem following the attempted assassination of Yehuda Glick Wednesday night. The PA chief pinned the blame for the dangerous escalation in violence on the Israeli government, saying the peak was this morning when the Jerusalem leadership decided to close the holy site to all visitors. So as I said, any tampering with this holy site at the Temple Mount for the Muslims is huge problems, not only for Israel, but for the world. Now, what I found interesting about...
Okay, so that was my warning back then. So now I'm going to bring you out of the past, some of my warnings from the past, and bring you to the future. Because you see in the article that I was reporting about today that the people who run the Dome of the Rock, or the Temple Mount area, the WAF, are boycotting these metal detectors. These metal detectors that Israel has changed. So there's been a status quo change on the Temple Mount. And what about that violence that I warned about? ynetnews.com. And it was published the 18th of July, 2017. Look at this. Fatah. Now, what is Fatah? A lot of people are going to ask. Abbas, that I already talked about, the one who was going to form a declaration of war against Israel if there was any changes, he is part of the Fatah party. So the headline is, Fatah calls for Day of Rage on Wednesday. And why? You'll see about the Temple Mount. After a series of confrontations between Muslims and Israeli security forces over the new security measures introduced at the entrances to the Temple Mount, the Fatah movement announced on Tuesday that a day of rage in East Jerusalem and the West Bank that will take place on Wednesday. In addition, Tasman, the militant faction of Fatah, decided that Friday's prayers would be held in squares in the main Palestinian cities, and sermons would be dedicated at the Al-Aqsa Mosque and against Israel's increased security measures. And you know why they increased? Because they were attacked.
and they put the metal detectors in there, and this was enough to change the status quo to call for a day of rage, violence that could lead into a conflict. So what I'm telling you about the future, you're seeing it in the news. And the only reason why I could do this is because I know what the Bible has to say about the Temple Mount, what's going to happen there in the future, so I can project into the future and tell you the news before it happens. As I said many times before, there are footsteps that are taking place that we're seeing in the news that are causing and making developments for the Jews to be able to go up to the Temple Mount in any time that they want. Now here's the deal. The Jews have been going through detectors for a very long time. The Jews have no problems with this because they know they're being protected. But as soon as the metal detectors are enforced on the Muslims, Muslims go crazy. Then ask yourself, why? What's wrong with these metal detectors that would enable the police to protect both the Muslims and the Jews? Well, let's face it. What do the Muslims do at the Temple Mount when Jews make an attempt to go up? They attack them. And so these metal detectors would stop any of those knives or the guns or any of these instruments of harm for both the Jews or the Muslims. So it shouldn't be a major issue at all for the PLO or for the PLO party, the Fatah. But the fact of the matter is, the bottom line is this: Israel is beginning to take control of the situation on the Temple Mount. That's enough in a change in the status quo to ignite violence. You want a sample of what has happened because of those metal detectors? Take a look at this. I think you get the point. The prophet Zechariah warned that Jerusalem would be a burdensome stone. You're seeing why. One of the major reasons why, is the ownership of this religious site, the Temple Mount. And the ownership of who controls it is like a time bomb waiting to go off. And when we see that final explosion, the end result will be a temple on the Temple Mount, just like Daniel and Jesus Christ said.